Congressman Peter King, the Republican chair of the House Homeland Security Committee, is calling for hearings on the radicalization of Muslim Americans. The hearings scheduled for Thursday have created a great deal of controversy, with critics comparing them to a McCarthy-era witch hunt. Congressman King says he's received threats, but he's not backing down.
We know there's homegrown terrorists. We know it's increasing. We know Al-Qaeda is making concerted effort to do it. And to me, it's absolutely insane that this type of opposition is developing for hearings, which I believe are absolutely essential.
Which he believes are absolutely essential. Here to debate, Dr. Zuhdi Jasser, founder and president of the American Islamic Forum for Democracy. Dr. Jasser will be testifying at the hearings. And Jacob Hornberger, founder and president of the Future of Freedom Foundation. Gentlemen, welcome to the Glenn Beck program. Dr. Jasser, to you first. You obviously have conferred with Congressman King's staff. You believe in these hearings. You're one of the lead-off witnesses. What are you going to say, and why are you going to say it?
Well, I'm going to say that so far, clearly, whatever our nation's been doing has not been working. Secretary Napolitano herself said that our nation is at the highest risk it's ever been. So if we see a problem, we need to walk it back and look at the root cause. We've not been treating the root cause. Clearly, the American Muslim community and Muslims have been the primary reporters of radicals in many instances, but we've still not been treating the ideology. And I think that's where our leadership has been lacking. They've been actually, in many times, facilitating the ideology of political Islam.
How does the government
that feeds the ideology.
Understood. Before I get to Jake Hornberger, how does the government get involved in instilling political ideology in people? How could you actually physically do that? Zuhdi, how could you do it?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I think what you need to do is part of the separation of mosque and state is that our founding fathers were very skilled in discussing the differences of Christianity and the diversity. Why can't we have that same functional discussion now and say, you know what? Spiritual Islam, moderate Islam is our friend. We want to lift up, give a platform to reformist Muslims. But the Muslims that are part of a global movement of the Brotherhood or Islamism are actually part of the problem, and we need to separate that, help get Islam through a reform and enlightenment so that that fuel for radicalization is no longer there. Okay,
Jacob Hornberger, there's obviously nothing wrong with a discussion. I mean, debate is good. I mean, that actually enhances our knowledge of things that we don't understand. But question for you, does the government have any business? This is the Congress of the United States that has subpoena power and is going to put people under oath to compel people to come before it and explain their political, religious, value, and ideological views to members of Congress.
Of course not. And this is exactly what our ancestors anticipated with that First Amendment. There's a reason why they specifically mentioned Congress as the biggest threat to freedom of religion, freedom of the press, and so forth, because they knew that Congress would end up attracting people like Peter King into office. They're really missing the point here, Judge. The point is that the investigation that they really need to be holding in Congress is the U.S. government's conduct in the Middle East. We now know that the U.S. government has been supporting these dictatorial regimes. They've been entering into torture rendition partnerships. They've been invading, occupying countries, sanctioning embargo. That's the root of the anger. But what King is doing is using this demonization of Islam and the Muslims as a smokescreen to continue those policies, and then, of course, since he's chairman of the Homeland Security Agency, to justify the continuation of the infringements on liberty of the American people with the Patriot Act, the torture, the indefinite detention, and all the other nonsense that they're engaged in.
Right. Zuhdi, are people testifying of their own free will, or are people testifying against their will at Congressman King's hearings?
On our own free will. I mean, this is our mission. This is why I formed an organization, is Congressman King is giving Muslims a platform to do the self-repair. I mean, the smokescreen is actually all the issues that Jacob just brought up that are completely not germane to what we're talking about. We're talking about a radicalization problem that only Muslims can fix. It's a Muslim problem that needs a Muslim solution. The vast majority of Muslims want to be part of the solution, but this is a pulpit and a platform to do so.
Okay, guys, hang out during the break because we have more of this debate with our combatants right after the break. We're back with Dr. Zuhdi Jasser of the American Islamic Forum for Democracy and Jacob Hornberger of the Future of Freedom Foundation. Jake, the problem really is a lot bigger than Congressman King would like to acknowledge, isn't it? Shouldn't he be looking into more things than simply what Dr. Jasser has suggested?
I don't even think you ought to be looking at any of the things that Dr. Jasser suggested. This is not a religious problem. You know, if the U.S. government were doing to the Vatican what it's been doing in the Middle East, you'd have Catholics outraged, and then they would convert it into a Catholic problem. It's not a religious problem. It's a U.S. government foreign policy problem. Ron Paul put it best in that famous presidential debate.
Right.
He said they came over here to kill us because our government's been over there killing them first. And that's what we need to be focused on, what our government has been doing to incite this anger and outrage against the United States.
Right. Dr. Jasser, would you not concede that the foreign policy of the United States of America, whether it's our physical presence in the Middle East or whether it's Guantanamo Bay, is a propaganda tool for those who want to radicalize Muslims, whether they're native-born or whether they come here under some sort of subterfuge?
Well, I think certain parts of the foreign policy, absolutely, as far as supporting dictatorships, has been a tool for radical Islam, and also our support, even more recently, of the Muslim Brotherhood and other Islamist groups has been certainly part of, I think, a threat to our security. And we have to be careful in that I think we can't let multiculturalism and this sense of not touching religion become our death knell, because we don't want to support, as Prime Minister Cameron said, muscular liberalism, promoting the ideas of liberty abroad and domestically against political Islam, against those ideas that penetrate and take youth away from our society.
What does Congressman King want to do? What does he hope comes out of this? What can the Congress possibly do about changing people's minds, Dr. Jasser?
Well, Judge, one of the things I'm sitting listening to you that concerns me is Congressman King, all the members of this committee are us. They're our government. Our nation has a huge problem. We can't even have a discussion because people get labeled as Islamophobes or McCarthyist. What I believe he's trying to do is give us as Muslims a platform to say, you know what, the best way to peel away radical or ideas that Muslims are bad is to let Muslims lead the charge.
Got it. Jake, we got about 30 seconds left. What's the worst that can come out of this?
The demonization of an entire people of a religious faith. It's telling that the Japanese Americans are coming out against this type of thing. They know what it's like. They know the feeling of this type of demonization. Got it.
Dr. Zuhdi Jasser, Jacob Hornberger, thanks very much for joining us. My final thoughts next.